Hello and welcome to this month's Glow Heartfulness webinar. I'm Purnima, your host for today's webinar. I'm a heartfulness trainer and a practitioner of heartfulness meditation. Glow stands for Genuine, Loving, Outstanding Women. And today on the webinar, I welcome Mirabai Bush, who is going to speak about the role of guide in one's spiritual path for personal transformation and evolution. So before we actually start the webinar, let me share a few things about Heartfulness Institute, who are the hosts of the Glow webinars. Heartfulness meditation is available in more than 130 countries with thousands of certified trainers and volunteers in different parts of the world. Heartfulness Institute teaches heartfulness meditation and other holistic tools to people all over the world through workshops organized in corporates, schools, universities, and local communities. We continuously find unique and interesting ways to bring heartfulness meditation and its benefits to everyone. We learn to meditate on the source of light in the heart which is the seed of love and joy. A special and unique feature of heartfulness meditation is meditating in the presence of yogic transmission or pranahuti, which is imparted by the guide. The Glow webinars is specially designed for women who can learn and practice meditation from the comfort of their home or from the click of a mouse button, as in the case of these webinars. So thank you so much for joining us today, Mirabai Bush. It's my honor and privilege to host you today. Welcome once again on this webinar.
Hello, and thank you so much, Purnima, for inviting me. And I'm especially happy to be talking about heartfulness, especially because I see so many people learning mindfulness and maybe overlooking the heart a little bit. So I think the work that you're doing is really important.
Mirabai Bush is the author of Working with Mindfulness. She's the co-creator of Google's Search Inside Yourself program. She's also the co-founder of Center for Contemplative Mind in Society. She's the founding board member of Seva Foundation. Mirabai Bush teaches contemplative practices. Her spiritual training includes 20 years of Catholic schooling. She spent 2 years in India with Neem Karoli Baba. She has been with many Tibetan Buddhist teachers for an immense number of years. She has 20 years of experiences in facilitating, organizing, and teaching in retreats, workshops, courses about spirit and action. So, Mirabai Bush, welcome once again, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for including me in this great discussion of heartfulness, which I think is so important.
So my first question to you is, these days there are more and more people who claim themselves to be unaffiliated from religion and are seeking something spiritual. According to you, what is spirituality? And what do you, or how do you think it is different from religion?
Spirituality, as I understand it, is the search for discovery of the truth or the nature of reality and the relation of you as an individual to the greater whole, the understanding of how what exists in you, what the nature of it is, what its implications are for our lives, and how you are part of a whole. And I think that you can make that journey and that discovery within organized religion, or you can do it on your own. It's interesting, at the Center for Contemplative Mind, when we started it, and we were going to take practices like mindfulness and compassion and so on, and yoga, and into secular settings in the United States. This is in '95 when no one was doing it yet. We interviewed 40 teachers of contemplative practice within institutions and religions, and we asked them what's the danger of taking practices out of organized religion and practices for discovery, spiritual practices. And they said, well, the practice, almost every one of them in their different ways, and they were from a whole range of religious backgrounds. They said, the practices themselves have their own integrity. So if you're on your own path outside religion, or if you're discovering these practices like at work or with a group of other people, they have integrity and they will help you in the path of transformation. But the danger is that you lose community. So in every religious tradition, there is a strength of, sangha or satsang or fellowship. And when you explore spirituality by yourself, unless you have a group of others you're exploring it with, the danger is you can learn less truthfully, go off in a way that will lead you astray in some way, and that you won't feel supported and cared for by others around you. And I thought that was a great definition of the value of. It's a mix. I myself have started out within religion, within the Catholic religion, and then after that explored many others and have felt at home in others. But my central path, I would say, is spiritual, while appreciating the value of religion. That helped.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, spiritual practices and techniques serves as a tool for our personal transformation. Suddenly, that is a very interesting truth. But how exactly can a spiritual practice transform us?
Well, of course, different practices do different things, but essentially, we, through most of these practices, and I would say I am most familiar with meditation of various kinds, and with the movement practices of yoga, tai chi, qigong, and practices of study and practices of interactive practices with others. But generally, they begin by quieting us down and helping us tune into and listen first to our own bodies. A lot of the time, we're going through life not paying much attention at all to our bodies. And within the body are many, messages to us. We can learn a lot by what we're feeling within our body. For example, emotions begin as physical experience. And if we pay attention to that, then we learn, for example, not to act without thought on the negative emotions. We learn that when the positive, caring, loving emotions start arising, to pay attention and give them space and cultivate them. So these practices begin by helping us tune into our bodies. They reduce stress. I always caution that the spiritual path doesn't like reduce your stress and make you happier on day one necessarily, because as you begin to look at what's in there, you may see things that you don't like so much. You may see things you want to change. You may see things that you've been repressing as a coping strategy. But in order to really wake up, you need to see everything that's there. But it can cause a certain amount of stress as that's happening. But in general, when you sit and do these practices, stress reduces. They have done lots of research now on they can measure cortisol in the body, and they can see in even like 15 minutes of doing basic practices, the heartfulness practice, mindfulness practices, yoga, that the cortisol just drops. And any of us who've done these practices know that experience. You start feeling better. And then you begin to, I think you begin to, well, I know you do, you begin to trust yourself more as you come to know what's there in your mind and heart and body. You trust yourself more because you know that you're seeing what's there, and so which will lead you to make good decisions for your life, good movement. it's not that you always like what you discover, but as long as you can see it and know it, you're going to make better decisions than otherwise. So then that develops this trust in yourself. I think of it as a radical self-confidence. It
Mhm.
doesn't mean you think you're always right, but you are in touch with what it is you feel and know, and you can then express what you don't know. So that happens. I think it also develops a welcoming of experience, of life, of others, because there's less fear. You're
Mhm.
less protecting yourself. You know better that as experiences come and you see them for what they are, you can respond through knowing yourself and having developed this caring, loving, passionate way of being in the world. Um, that you can be much more welcoming to every moment as it comes and at whatever's in it. And then finally, it just these practices help us just become more full human beings, uh, uh, discover what it means to be human. And I always say that when I met my teacher, my guru in India, um, it wasn't that anything that he said specifically taught me. It was more that I saw the possibilities of, I saw the possibility of what it can be to be human. That he expanded it so much for me. I had kind of a small idea of who I was and what I could be. And I thought I'd go through life and I'd get a little bit better than I am, you know. But he so expanded the possibility of this uh, wide open loving heart and wise mind that just made me much more excited about life and much more kind of happy to be here. So those are the reasons I practice and what I have glimpsed, not totally realized from doing practice.
Thank you for the interesting scientific explanation of what a practice can do to us in the human body. And yes, certainly the practice makes us more mindful and opens up interesting possibilities as a human being. There are a lot of organizations, there are a lot of tools and techniques these days, and many organizations also claim to be secular. So, how do you see spirituality in the midst of this? Do you see that? Do you see any intersect between the sacred and the secular, or do you see that as a conflict, or do you see the practices helping you to move towards the sacred? How do you envision the two aspects of our manifestation, that is our sacredness and our secularism?
It's a great question. Thank you. Um, well, I've actually spent a lot of time thinking about this I because I did this work in the Center for Contemplative Mind of bringing these practices, which are about cultivating the sacred, recognizing the sacred, um, into secular settings in which we worked with um, lawyers and judges and business executives, journalists, the army, um, and active social justice activists, philanthropists, many different kinds of people, all of whom were um, leading uh, their work lives, let's say, their professional lives, and thought of them as separate from their um, religious, spiritual, or sacred lives. Um, and by introducing practice into these settings, which we did to help people integrate their lives better, to recognize that there weren't these false separations, to bring more or recognize meaning in the work that they were doing, to remembering why it was they originally chose to be a public interest lawyer or um, a CEO of a corporation. You know, there are good reasons, deep reasons to do these things, which often people forget. while they're in the busyness of whatever it is they're doing. Um, we also hope that these practices would help people slow down enough to and take care of themselves enough and cultivate enough loving kindness and compassion that their lives were happier and they could relate to people better. Um, and so I saw that the way these practices help with that is that simply by helping people be more present in the moment, to let go of everything that's not about this moment, which doesn't mean not making plans. You might be making plans for the future, but you're doing it in this moment. It doesn't mean never, benefiting from our experience in the past by remembering it and thinking about it, but but being with it in this moment, not getting lost in sometimes regrets about the past or anxiety about the future. Um, so bringing these practices into everyday work really helped melt the barriers between the secular and the sacred. It was doing it in very secular settings, but we were helping people remember what's meaningful about their lives, and in that way, making helping them recognize that everything they do is sacred because you're here. You have this precious human life, and everything you do in it is, in fact, sacred. But we just forget that that's true. Sacred in the sense that you are connected to everything that exists, and and what you do is important. It's important to honor that and to honor our connections, especially with each other and with however you understand the divine. Um, so sometimes we do things like try to try to transform secular space into sacred space. So we do things like we acted it out. We move into like a conference center to do a retreat, and we would add a candle and flowers and maybe some pictures of something that would evoke interconnection for people. We'd maybe hang a few beautiful cloths around. We tried to maybe we'd ask people to take their shoes off when they entered the room, which in this country people don't usually do. We would ask them to be in silence for parts of the time, so that they could more easily remember the sacred. And of course, it would change things, and they could see that this space that usually evoked, okay, where are my notes, where are my, got to get this down, got to record it on my cell phone, got to say what I already know at a meeting instead of really listening and saying what arises in that moment. So that was educational for a lot of people. Yeah.
It's very interesting the way you said how a spiritual practice helps a person be more in the moment, more be aware of the current situation, and it doesn't mean he doesn't make plans about the future, but to be more aware of what is in the now. And you also spoke about being connected to everything else in the universe, and still, it makes complete sense. And thank you so much for that beautiful explanation about the sacred and the secular not just meeting but being one and the same. So
I would, as I listen to you speak, I feel like I have to say that so much of this I learned or was awakened in me when I went to India. I went to India, I thought, for 2 weeks, and I ended up staying for 2 years. And there I studied with many great teachers and also found myself in some of the sacred spaces. And it was such a gift to me that anyhow, I listening to your voice is making me happy.
thank you. So you were speaking about this guide in India with whom you spent some time. So it makes me want to ask this next question. So, what is the role of a spiritual guide in human transformation, and how will this person whom I consider to be my guide help me grow spiritually? Do I need a person who can take me on this path? I have the spiritual practices, and which you said is going to help me transform. So, coming to the actual topic of the webinar, how is the role of a guide going to matter? How do you see that it matters?
Mm-hmm. Well, as I began saying, I had the great privilege of being with a really great teacher, Neem Karoli Baba, in
Mhm.
North India. Um, and I went to, I wasn't looking for a teacher. I didn't know enough to look for a teacher. I went to India just on a kind of vague search in 1970, at a time when the United States was in a lot of turmoil. I traveled around the world trying to find a way of being that seemed saner to me and that seemed more real. And well, we won't say it's by chance because we don't believe these things are really by chance, but um, I first learned meditation in a Burmese Buddhist monastery, and then I met my teacher, and um, um, but I do think that it is so helpful to have, as you're practicing, to have at least a guide, in that, um, in in the Southern Buddhist tradition, for example, they say, well, you don't need a guru. What you need is, what do they call it? Like a spiritual friend, someone who's somewhat ahead of you on the path. But it doesn't have to be an enlightened person. It's just someone who's ahead of you who can help you as you're going through whatever you're waking up to, and can guide you with that. And I think that's helpful because not everybody discovers their teacher, at least maybe not yet. But one time when I came back to this country, I studied with Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, who was a Tibetan teacher, Lama.
Mhm.
And people would ask him, uh, uh, Rinpoche, what do you need a guru for? What they said was, you just told us that it's all within you. If it's all within you, what do you need a guru for? He said, well, you need a guru to tell you that it's all within you. So there are different ways to hear that, but I thought that was great. It's like, yes, it's there. And a good teacher will help you not just see it once, but remember over and over that to look within, you'll find it. But um, it's a person who's ahead of you at whatever pace, who can not only tell you to do that, but inspire you to do it. You can say, oh, this is all a good thing to do because look at this person, who I love being around. I see how loving he or she is, and how wise. And um, I want to be like that because I want to lead a life that relieves suffering in myself and others and doesn't create it. A life that increases happiness in all of us, kindness, and yeah. So that is my feeling about teachers, and we find them in so many places. Sometimes you find someone who's really identified as a really good teacher, and you spend time with that teacher and you find that I'm gonna stay with this person as long as I can because I'm learning so much. um, and sometimes you find that that's not the right person for you. So, um, and it's not what one of the things I really appreciated about and learned when I was in India was when I went there, I was in the fourth year of my PhD. So I had been in school forever. And I was with really great teachers at my school and in the US. But but it was a different relationship, as you know, from the relationship with a spiritual teacher. And I didn't, I had never thought about that. I mean, there were my teachers before had been really expert in their subject and they could teach me a lot about that, but sometimes they weren't particularly really ethical, moral, kind, loving people. They just happened to know a lot about something. but when I but in India I discovered not just from Neem Karoli Baba, but from other teachers I was just around and listening to, um, I discovered a way in which I could be taught about being a human, about um, uh, just being part of this great mysterious whole. And I, it was really quite a new experience for me. When I first met um, Neem Karoli Baba, I was actually I was traveling with my friend Ramdas, who uh, you mentioned before we opened up, that this dear friend of mine who introduced me to a lot of this died last week. And so he's very much in my heart and mind today. But I was traveling with him when we came apart. He had been with Neem Karoli Baba before. He'd gone to India. He'd been with him. He came back to the United States. He wrote a book called Be Here Now that was just hit at the absolute right time in this country. And um, you know, he sold 2 million copies of the book because people were so hungry for, hearing just what we're talking about today, how these practices and teachers can change your life. So he was by the side of the road and we saw him, and the bus came to a stop and I kind of stumbled off the bus, and when I saw him, as I said, I was an intellectual graduate student. I'd grown up in New York. I was a Westerner, I had never bowed to anyone ever, and also I was in the middle of the women's liberation movement, and I saw him, and there was not even a thought. I was like down, and why? Because I got in that moment how, you know, how what a big presence he was, and how that he didn't want anything, but he was just living and demonstrating for the rest of us what, how much, what we might be able to grow into. So, as you can tell, I could go on for a long time, but let's go to the next question.
Thank you so much. And I liked what you said about a guru or a guide being a friend in some of the Buddhist traditions, because it's the same way in the Sufi traditions too, where you actually call a guru or your teacher or your guide as a friend. And when you translate it into the English language, the word actually translates to friend. And that was such a nice analogy.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, in the Sufi tradition.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked what you said about you need a guru to actually tell you to look inside. That really was an amazing
Yeah.
statement. It was so amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. My next question to you is, what is the ultimate transforming potential for a human being, in a human being?
Hmm. Do you mean what can we become?
Yeah. What can we become? And What is the seed of that which we can become?
Well, what we can become is in some way not so different from what we are right this moment, and in another way, utterly different. In that it's just becoming fully who we are. We have everything we need to become fully who we are becoming. Um, and I mean, I think any of us have done any practice know the difference between sometimes you sit down and you have all kinds of things going on, and the world seems troubled and difficult, and uh, maybe over something small and maybe over something really big. And then you just sit for a while, and the the world hasn't changed. And it's not that there isn't um, a lot that you may want to do to make change in the world, to make it a better place to be, both in yourself and outside. But the way in which you perceive it and the way in which you perceive yourself within it has changed. And uh, you, the, you experience your loving heart awakening. You experience your mind quieting so that it has more insight uh, into the nature of the situation. And you're there, and you know what to do. Um, you know how to be because we already do know it. It's really just remembering and waking up to it. I mean, in Zen, they say we're all already enlightened. You just need to remember that too. Um, and um, and you experience that in a small way when you do these practices, when you do heartfulness, mindfulness, all of it. Um, you um, you experience that unconditional space of love within yourself, um, and that's it. That's it. That space of love is the same as awareness, consciousness. We are all connected through love. Maharaji's said very little to us. He wasn't a philosopher. He didn't even teach us practice. He just said a few things, and he said, "Love everyone and serve everyone." And by of course, how do you do that? I've been working at it for 50 years trying to figure out what that means. But uh, but by loving everyone, by opening your heart to everyone, you then you know the truth. And you're there in that space of unconditional love, unconditional um, awareness, truth. It's all one. Beauty. It's all one. That's another thing you used to say. Sobek, all one. And uh, yeah, that's that's it. It's both really simple, and we've been given a life in order to figure it out or practice it out. Experience it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So, as we are speaking about the spiritual practices, about the role of guide, about the divide between secular and sacred not really existing, uh, we would like to also offer an experiential session of heartfulness, relaxation, and meditation for the participants as a spiritual practice.
Perfect.
So, let us start with this guided heartfulness relaxation practice. You do not need prior experience of meditation to do this today. It will be a short session, and if you would like to continue this practice, we will give you additional resources towards the end of the meditation session. So sit comfortably and be guided by my voice. Take a deep breath and sit comfortably. Close your eyes. Let's begin from the toes. Wiggle your toes and relax your toes. Relax your feet and feel an energy from Mother Earth rising up. This energy, as it rises up, relaxes your legs. This energy slowly rises up and relaxes your knees, your thighs, your hips, and moves up. Slowly bring your attention to your lower back and feel this energy relaxing your lower back, slowly moving up, relaxing your upper back. Your whole back is completely relaxed now. This energy moves towards your stomach, relaxing your stomach, relaxing your chest and your chest muscles. Slowly bringing your attention to your shoulders and relaxing your shoulders. Feel this energy moving through your arms, your forearms, elbows, wrist, palm, fingers, up to the tip of your fingers. You're completely relaxed and this energy oozes out of your fingertips. Arms are completely relaxed now. Very gently bring your attention to the neck. Feel this energy relaxing the muscles of your neck. All the tension in your neck are melting away. Your neck is completely relaxed. Slowly move your attention to your head. Muscles in your face are relaxing now. Your ears, jaws, lips, cheeks, nose, eyes, forehead, till the tip of your head. Everything is completely relaxed. If any part of your body needs special attention, feel this energy moving there and relaxing that part of the body. Bring your attention to the heart which is the source of love and light and joy. There is a source of light in your heart. And let us meditate on this source of light. And as we meditate on this source of light, it is pulling us deep within into our heart. If you're distracted by other thoughts during meditation, gently ignore them and bring your attention back to the light in the heart. Let us meditate together for a few minutes. Whenever you're ready, please open your eyes. We just had a session of heartfulness, relaxation, and meditation. What you experienced was pranahuti or yogic transmission, a very subtle energy. If you would like to continue this practice, please go to heartfulness.org, or you can write to us at info@heartfulness.org, and we will share a few resources and also put you in touch with a heartfulness trainer. You can also go to heartspots.heartfulness.org. We have about 6,000 heartspots, which is actually 6,000 heartfulness centers across the world. And you can see which is the nearest heartfulness center to your location. I also recommend these 3 free masterclass sessions, which are 3 meditation sessions conducted by Taji Kamleshji Patel, who is the global guide of heartfulness. These 3 sessions are about just an hour each, and you can check these out on 3 consecutive days. And these are available on the website heartfulness.org/masterclass. There is also a course on Udemy, and this is the most sought after course in meditation, and it's called Meditation and Evolution of Consciousness with Daji. Additional reading resources are the Heartfulness Way book, which has been on the Amazon bestseller list for the past 2 years, and it continues to be there. Another resource is Designing Destiny, which is also a book written by Raji Kamleshji Patel. We also have Heartfulness magazine for subscription, and the free e-copy is also available to be read and downloaded from the heartfulnessmagazine.com website. We encourage you to write to us at glow@heartfulness.org for feedback of this webinar. And if you have any additional queries or questions for Mirabai Bush, please write to us at glow@heartfulness.org. We'll be very happy to get back to you. Thank you so much, Mirabai. It has been a very wonderful session with you, and with my utmost gratitude, and I bid goodbye to you. If you have any closing thoughts, closing comments, please share them now.
Oh, well, I just want to thank you, and thanks to everyone who just did this meditation together. I think it's so kind of amazing that we can sit together around the world and at the same time connected, remembering how we're connected to each other. It's pretty wonderful. And thank you for making it all possible. And thank you for, I just think it's so, the very word heartfulness is so important. It's not just in our minds. It's not even just in our bodies. The heart is really where we experience the connection with each other. So that is what's going to, help us survive as a species and evolve. So thank you so much, Purnima, and thanks for the whole organization for doing the good work that you do.